today's Top Boxing News.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the WBC interim junior middleweight title fight between former champion Cecilia Brækhus and former world title challenger and late replacement Marisela Cornejo. I didn't know if I could trust Cecilia to get the job done ahead of this fight. I didn't know that at 42 years old, she would still have enough left in the tank to seal the deal. Marisela Cornejo is a late replacement. That's not who Cecilia was training for. Cecilia was training for a southpaw. She ended up with an orthodox fighter. Initially, Cecilia was supposed to be fighting Slovenia's unified junior middleweight champion, Emma Kozin, and at the last minute, she ended up with Marisela. And those late replacements for some fighters, they can be real banana peels, real banana skins. So I didn't trust the situation and I decided not to pick. I rode the fence on this one, though I was pleasantly surprised to see that not only does Cecilia Brækhus still have it, she made some adjustments, because where normally she's a cerebral fighter that stays behind her jab and works behind her jab, she hit the gas in this fight. She was very aggressive, coming forward, stalking Marisela Cornejo, the bigger, younger fighter, forcing Marisela Cornejo back onto her back foot to move lateral as Cecilia advanced, stepping into her jab and bringing other punches over for me and my money, consistently getting the better end of the exchanges when there were exchanges. The work was neater and tidier more often for Cecilia than it was for Marisela, and that's not saying that Marisela never got in with anything good. She landed some good punches. She made Cecilia work. It just didn't happen often enough that she could keep Cecilia off of her or out of the pocket. Consistently, Cecilia was the fighter coming forward, and she even scored a knockdown. I wasn't expecting that. Cecilia is not necessarily known for knockdowns or knockouts. She's not necessarily known as a particularly strong puncher, so that she was able to knock down someone that's so much bigger and so much younger than she is, while being busier, because she was also the busier fighter round by round, whereas as the fight progressed, it seemed like Marisela Cornejo was starting to tire, starting to unravel more and more as Cecilia became more and more persistent, bringing over right hands, left hooks in the exchange. It felt like Cecilia was fighting to prove that she still got it and she's still one of the best fighters in the world. I think she showed that yesterday. The iconic Halle Berry was in attendance. For those not aware, Halle Berry has been a fan, a supporter of Cecilia Brækhus's for some years now, and she was ringside, taking in the action. Cecilia won, and so became the WBC's interim champion, which keeps her in line for an Emma Kozin fight that I believe they will reschedule. Emma holds 2 of the 4 world titles in the junior middleweight division. She is that division's only unified champion. If Cecilia gets another crack at the apple, if and when they reschedule the Emma Kozin fight, and if Cecilia wins, that will be enough to get her back on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. She already has one of the better resumes in women's boxing today. A world title runs that lasted for years and years. She came very close to breaking Joe Louis's record for title defenses. Several title defenses, many of them undisputed title defenses, as Cecilia Brækhus reigned as an undisputed champion for many, many years in the welterweight division, now at junior middle. If she can become a champion at a second weight, let alone a unified champion, that will be enough to get her ranked in the top 5 pound-for-pound of the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, though it's important to note that Emma Kozin is a stiffer test and a much tougher assignment than Marisela Cornejo. That's going to be a harder fight if and when the time comes. Just saying, so even if Cecilia Brækhus still has it, and she showed that yesterday, make no mistake, Emma Kozin can push back a lot harder than Marisela Cornejo did yesterday. Congratulations to the First Lady. Congratulations to Norway's own Cecilia Brækhus for getting the job done and turning back the clock, turning back the hands of time. Now, there is a lot more to cover, which we will talk about in another video, as this was a fully loaded weekend of action. We now move to the main event of that same show, the Virgil Ortiz versus Sergey Bohachuk fight that doubled as both a Fight of the Year candidate and perhaps Robbery of the Year, at least to some people. I've seen it 2 times now. I saw it again this morning with my morning coffee. Ahead of the fight, I went with Virgil to win. Virgil to win by way of knockout. And having seen the fight 2 times now, It's not so much that Virgil won, but Sergey didn't lose.
I've seen it 2 times now. Sergey didn't lose that fight.
It's acknowledging that I went with Virgil Ortiz to win, and he won. He won on paper. The judges scored the fight in his favor, though I think you'd have to give Virgil every consideration possible to come to the conclusion that he won.
Every close round.
You must have given it to Virgil. You would have had to in a fight where he was knocked down 2 times. He was knocked down early in the fight off a right hand, originally ruled a slip, ruled a knockdown later on as the fight progressed.
Suffered 2 knockdowns in the fight, a cut, I believe, over his left eye.
So where some of Virgil Ortiz's fans started piping up and poking out their chests, saying that Virgil would stop Terence Crawford based on how Terence looked last week, I maintain that Terence would stop Virgil based on how Virgil looked this week.
This one.
The fight lived up to my expectations. It was every bit the action fight that I expected it to be because Virgil's an action fighter and so is Sergey. Virgil's a pressure fighter and so is Sergey. They're both volume punchers that let the punches go.
Flow.
Though do I think that Virgil won yesterday?
No.
Could see a draw. It's either Sergey Bohachuk on points or a draw. That's how I saw it, having seen the fight 2 times.
An evenly fought fight. But for anyone to suggest that the only real success Sergey had was in the 2 rounds that he knocked Virgil down, that's bullshit.
Oh, he didn't win any other rounds besides those 2. Is that what you're trying to convince me of?
Stop it.
Oh, the prediction stuck. The prediction definitely stuck because I went with Virgil to win and Virgil won on paper, but I know what my eye saw. What my eye saw was either Sergey Bohachuk on points or a draw.
He didn't lose.
I didn't see him lose that fight, and I didn't see 8 rounds I could give to Virgil. I didn't see 8 rounds I could give to Virgil or 7 rounds that I could give to Virgil. The fight was close. Very close. But for Virgil to win it, you would have to give him every single close round. Every single one.
The judges did on what was a Golden Boy Promotions show, to no one's surprise. They weren't going to let Virgil lose that fight so long as he was still standing at the end.
And I knew that going in. That by hook or by crook, Virgil's going to win this fight.
Afterwards.
Saw him win. I don't know what to say. I'm definitely disappointed. I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out there. I hope I don't get myself in trouble with the commission or the judges or the WBC or any of these so-called sanctioning bodies. Man, I get sick and tired of this shit time and time again. How unfair they could be to these fighters, like tonight with Sergey, how unfair they could be. They put their lives on the line, everything that they go through just to get to this point. And for these officials to I don't know what the fuck they're looking at, man. And not only that, nobody holds them accountable. Nobody holds them accountable. They interview all the they interview the fighters, they interview the judges, the managers, the promoters, they interview everybody except the judges. They go home. They just go home and nobody tells them anything, nobody questions them, nobody puts them on the spot, you know, and I believe that's gotta stop. I believe they should be held accountable. Yeah. You know, they should interview them immediately after the fight and ask them, what the fuck are you looking at? Excuse my French, but you know, it is what it is. Look at the 12th round.
Ahead of the fight, I told you that while Virgil and Sergey have a lot in common, that they're both pressure fighters, they're both volume punchers, Sergey's best punches are his straight punches from the outside coming in, his long-range punches as he steps in, whereas Virgil's best punches are his bent arm punches, his hooks, his uppercuts, his body shots. That's how it played out in the fight, to where when Virgil's having success, it's deep, deep in the pocket, whereas when Sergey's having success, it's when he's got room to throw and room to straighten the arm out, to bring over that big right hand, and he brought it over several times, landed it several times.
He rocked Virgil several times.
I saw both fighters hurt each other in this fight. I saw Virgil hurt Sergey Bohachuk to the body, and Sergey didn't stop punching, he didn't stop fighting. The guy's got a hell of a poker face, and I underestimated his wherewithal, his durability.
He's not as fragile as I thought.
I saw him weather those body shots that Virgil was landing from the beginning of the fight, the middle of the fight, to the end of the fight, but the same can be said for the straight punches from Sergey. I saw Virgil weather right hand after right hand after right hand from Sergey Bohachuk.
Very tough guys.
I saw Virgil pushed yesterday in a way that he's not often pushed. He's usually the bigger guy. Sergey's bigger than him. Sergey's longer, just as aggressive, just as persistent.
Some ways it was the first time Virgil was fighting somebody who's bigger than he is. It was the first time he made junior middleweight, the very first time.
Because his last 2 fights before this one were fought just north of junior middleweight. This is the first time he actually made it, and this is the first time somebody took him the distance. Somebody went all 12 with him.
It's important.
Because as the fight progressed, you could see that Virgil was slowing down. You could see that he was losing form. There wasn't as much on his punches. You could see that before yesterday, Virgil had never been 10 rounds with anyone. He'd never been 10 rounds, let alone 12.
Because of the frantic and frenzied pace of the fight, how many punches he's throwing versus how many punches are being thrown at him, you could see that Virgil's cardio, his conditioning, it was giving out.
He wasn't as explosive as he was at the start. He wasn't as damaging, as hurtful, even when he does get in with some shots.
There were moments where you could see that he hurt Sergey, but he couldn't finish.
In the third quarter of the fight, in the fourth and final quarter of the fight, the last 3 rounds, there were moments where Virgil gets in with a good body shot. You can see Sergey doesn't like it, but Virgil blew his wad. He blew his load. He couldn't finish.
Couldn't stop him.
Because he's not used to a fight going on for that long, especially at a pace like that. And he's certainly not used to somebody being able to stand up to his power. Both boys fought their ass off. And I don't want to say that Virgil got a gift, but at the same time, I didn't see Sergey lose. I either saw Sergey win a points decision by a narrow margin, or it should have been a draw.
There ought to be a rematch.
But there won't be. After a grueling contest like that, they're not going to run it back. There is not going to be a second fight.
Virgil is now the WBC interim champion.
Well, now you have that belt around your waist. How does that feel? It feels great, but now we got to fight the winner of Fundora and Spence. That's what we're after right now. You just won, everybody. Congratulations, the new world.
I wasn't the least bit surprised to hear Virgil Ortiz say that immediately after the fight, even though before the fight, during that same broadcast, it was announced that if Virgil wins, what His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh wants to do is put Virgil in the ring with Terrence.
It wasn't even the first time we heard that.
We just heard it again yesterday before the main event started, so that after the main event was over, Virgil can announce he wants the winner of Fundora versus Spence, not Terrence Crawford, even though we don't know when Fundora versus Spence is going to happen and how long it would take to make a fight between the winner of that fight and you.
He doesn't want Crawford.
If you were watching along during my live stream yesterday of this broadcast, you will have seen me react to that news with some skepticism, that if Virgil takes care of business tonight, he's going to move on and fight Crawford afterwards. I didn't believe it then.
I was right to not believe it, because look at what he said.
Well, now you have that belt around your waist. How does that feel? It feels great, but now we got to fight the winner of Fundora and Spence. That's what we're after right now. You just won, everybody. Congratulations, the new world.
So how are the Ortiz fans going to spin this? The ones who were piping up last week that Virgil would do this to Terrence Crawford, or he would do that to Terrence Crawford.
He ain't gonna do shit.
Because once again, he doesn't want to fight him. And it's obvious he doesn't want to fight him. Some time ago, Paco Veracel exposed that fight was offered to Virgil Ortiz 2 times, and it was rejected both times. This makes 3.
So what's the excuse gonna be now?
Guess Terrence is back to being a boogeyman.
For us, we were supposed to fight him in June.
For Crawford?
For Crawford, you know, after a fight like that, you know, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense
You
to
had
me.
a broken nose, no?
Yeah, that's what they say, you know.
Oh.
So your nose wasn't broken.
Well, I mean, based on that fight, you both were bloody somewhere.
It was a bloody fight, but you know, I don't think neither of us were damaged like that.
So you weren't badly damaged, your nose wasn't broken, and you still turned down a Crawford fight.
It was a bloody fight, but that's what happens in boxing, you know.
People saying the fight that makes sense, money, is Fundora Spence. But now Spence is no longer, correct? Is that fight completely off?
That is not true. That is not true.
People, who are reporting these things?
You know, you go on social media, you're gonna see a lot of lies.
Okay.
If you want the right things, I'm not gonna tell you guys everything because it's not my job. That's the promoter job.
It's still in the works, possibly.
Of course, it's still in the works. Of course. Spence is Spence. You know, I don't see why he would retire, but you see these rumors online, and
My previous video, we talked about Cynthia Conte's interview with Unified Junior Middleweight Champion, Unified for now at least.
Because if he doesn't fight Terence Crawford, the WBO is gonna strip him.
We talked about how Sebastian Fundora let the cat out of the bag and basically told on himself and told on Samson Lukowicz that all that stuff about him being injured and not being able to return until the fall, that was all bullshit.
He could have been back as soon as June.
They were approached by Turki Al-Sheikh in reference to a Crawford fight, and they didn't want to do it. So Team Fundora didn't want to do it. Now Virgil doesn't want to do it.
So that you bozos online could tell me, oh, well, Crawford's got a thin resume. Crawford hasn't fought anybody. All he did was beat an injured Spence.
Bullshit, you're just a bunch of cowards.
Bunch of pussies. You're so big a bunch of pussies, you would rather see the both of those guys chase around a guy that Crawford beat up, a guy Crawford beat, than see them fight Crawford.
Because you're scared that for all the shit you like to say online about Terence, how he's overrated and he's not that good, what you're afraid of
You are afraid.
is that for all the shit you're saying, if one or two of those fighters that you do like end up fighting Terence, they're gonna end up like Spence.
Is that what I've been saying?
They both would. Sebastian would end up like him. Virgil would end up like him because neither one of you two guys fight like Israel. Then in terms of the most dangerous fight at 154, who's a dangerous guy? Terence already fought him.
The most dangerous fighter. One of the most dangerous fights? Yeah, he already had it. He had it last week.
Seems that the PBC is back to their old tricks, their old habit of trying to freeze Terence Crawford out.
Even when there's Saudi money involved.
Fundora knows what time it is, and so does Virgil Ortiz. Turki Al-Sheikh was in attendance for Virgil's fight yesterday, and after the fight, what does he say? Who is he looking at?
The winner of a fight that hasn't happened yet and isn't even on schedule.
Probably wouldn't go down till well into next year. So while you wait for the winner of that fight, the winner of Fundora versus Spence, why don't you fight Terence?
It's a problem.
Why doesn't Sebastian? You know, when I pointed that out 2 days ago, that Sebastian basically admitted he ducked Terence Crawford, and he's still ducking Terence Crawford, I actually got pushback.
Two idiots that lost their speaking privileges on this channel.
I know what your real problem with Terence Crawford is. Try as you might to disguise it, your bigotry.
You still don't get it. As much time as I spent ridiculing tribalists, do you think that your tribalism is any different?
Do you think that your tribalism appears to me any different than anyone else's? Because it doesn't. And all that makes you as a coward.
And a hypocrite.
So go tell somebody else that stupid shit that comes across your mind.
Dumbass.
Sebastian and Virgil are ducking Terence. The overrated fighter, the guys you're telling me is overrated, they're ducking him. And you're okay with that because of the one or two things you have in common with them that I don't give a salient shit about.
Cowards.
I wonder what the excuse is going to be now and how they spin this.